Hi everyone, welcome to Data Engineering Weekly Radio. Ashwin here with me. This is Anand, editor of Data Engineering Weekly. So we started this as an experiment. We wanted to kind of, share more than what we kind of sharing in the Data Engineering Weekly newsletter, right? We wanted to kind of analyzing some of the articles that comes in, trying to share the author's perspective and try to, see what is the bigger picture along with that. And at some point of a time, we were really hoping to, bring those authors to our conversation and to get more behind the scene insights about why do the systems comes in place, what are the business problems they're solving, so that it will be very educative for personally for me and Ashwin, and hopefully for you also. So with that, the edition that we are going to discuss today is Data Engineering Weekly edition 119. So I know we are like about 2 weeks off from that, but like this is something that we've been trying, retrying all the time. Hey, this is the first time. There's always something, a lot of things to improve. So let's jump on. Hey, Ashwin, you wanna introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, hello subscribers of the Data Engineering Weekly, and welcome to this podcast. I'm happy to be on this show with Anand, sharing my perspectives and takes from the author's viewpoints and also some of my takes from the industry as well. Uh, and I think weekly 119 and 120 and all of that, I think that Anand is going to publish every week. He brings in a new flavor. Uh, Data Engineering Weekly has definitely been very helpful for me. It's like a consolidated list of articles that any data engineer should not miss. Uh, and I think the podcast and this radio show is basically going to accelerate your consumption. Right, that's the goal. Right, so excited to be here with Anand, sharing perspectives and also going through some of the very important topics that we feel are relevant. To summarize, to also highlight through this podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for kind words, Ashwin. Let's jump on our first topic of the weekly edition 119. Is scaling media machine learning at Netflix. So Netflix essentially, Netflix writes about media machine learning infrastructure, and especially for the media focused infrastructure. That's a key highlighted point of it. The key focus here is bring data specific to the media assets, and then this fill the feature store around that. I think this is a very interesting article. The authors kind of trying to emphasize like why there is a need for a specialized media domain or a specialized media in a machine learning infrastructure required for Netflix. Netflix as a media company, enormously and innovator in this adopting machine learning into their business workflow. So this is a very interesting blog post to read that.
Yeah, I think
And
a lovely perspectives, Anand. I think taking one or two highlights from the last sentence you made. I think specialized media focus. I think it also comes from an era where we have a lot of general purpose machine learning platforms coming up. But then this looks very specialized, isn't it?
yeah, totally. I think this is something that very interesting to me is essentially, like when the Netflix recommendation engine came out, and it was like that word of the street is like, okay, recommendation engine, every business should have a recommendation engine. And there's a whole bunch of plug and play recommendation engine companies available, born out of it, right? If you are a New York Times, you just plug into your my plugin and it will start recommending your article without doing that one. It's kind of commoditizing the recommendation engine. And I seen the pattern. There is a lot of specialized recommendations engine for each and every domain. There's one for a media domain, there's one for e-commerce, and then it gone. Like we just end up in like a more of a generalized model here. I'm not sure. Like, is it still there? We
Yeah.
just don't see that. Like, probably they make more money there. I don't know, right?
Yeah, this also lines up with what I am hearing from Snowflake. I think the last couple of weeks, whatever announcements Snowflake, AWS, they all been making, they all are talking about industry specific models, industry specific. I think probably that's how the world is projecting towards. Uh, no idea, but then just an observation, right? I think uh, coming back to this blog itself, which has been written by several people, I think this blog basically talks about some of the unique challenges and options that has been faced by ML folks in the media domain, right? So they do share some of the best practices around what they did, how they approached this particular problem statement as well. Anand, you want to quickly highlight some of the key
Yeah,
things from the blog?
yeah. Some of the things are kind of very specific to media domain. They're kind of saying about like hey, how do they handle the decoding, the performance of those the media formats and the size and the metadata associated with that, like capturing rich metadata specific to the media domain. And I think that's kind of a very interesting aspect. And also they talked about like the whole media infrastructure being widely used across like same feature store being used across multiple media applications on an ML front. So it's kind of like promoting the reusability and promoting the saving the cost associated with that, not to recompute the same metrics or features over and over again. I think that the reusability is something, and reusability, saving the cost, domain specific, it's kind of a resonating very well with me.
Yeah, and I think they also cover some of the tech tools that they've used and the options that they have evaluated and the options that are available for media ML practitioners to understand their choices and how they've gone about it, right? So that's amazingly well documented here. So I love how the blog is turned up, the options for feature store that they did, AutoML and all of that. So I think great highlights there.
Yeah, yeah. I think the key takeaway out of this blog is really the question to back to the ML folks and industry. So it's like, are you building a specialized like specialized ML platform for your domain, or are you utilizing a general purpose ML platform, and then you're building your domain specific model there? And is your company operating in multiple domains? Like Netflix cases, like there's an e-commerce aspect of it, there is a media aspect of it, the media production aspect of it is that if you take in any e-commerce company, there's a supply chain aspect, there's a consumer aspect of it. Do you see a specialized machine learning more infrastructure coming around in your company? So if you if you come across any interesting case, like please feel free to come at us in the podcast. We'll have to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, perfect. Uh, I think that's pretty much it. I think I would strongly recommend folks to go through the blog. It's very interesting, even if you're coming from a pure data engineering background, to understand how you see convergence happening in terms of domain models and all of that in a data product world. This going to be a very thin line between ML and data engineering. So I think it's definitely a good read, irrespective of what or what's your role in the data world. So strongly
Yeah,
recommend
yeah.
that.
Yeah, definitely. I think domain specific metric like feature so reusability. It all sounds like me a data mart. So
Yeah,
like a
data mart.
data mart for ML infrastructure. So it's
Yes.
very interesting. Moving on to the next topic, right? So another interesting blog post came from Redonomy from Alex Woodie, and it's about open table format square offs in Lakehouse data Smackdown. That's a very interesting title of the title of a blog. But it's a very interesting blog also. The blog essentially talks about what are the various open table for Lakehouse formats available. So if you're taking largely in the market, there's like three major players. Apache Hudi came out of Uber. One house is now behind Apache Hudi, making a lot of interesting choice. A lot of Lakehouse architecture evolution. I would really credit to Apache Hudi in many ways. And then Iceberg came out of Netflix, and there's like several companies around Iceberg right now. And then there's Delta Lake. They came out of Databricks, largely focusing on Databricks ecosystems, giving a very integrated ecosystem. So why open table formats became popular? That's something of an interesting question. That what do you think, Ashwin, on that?
Yeah, I think the blog that we're also referring to is very interesting. Right, comes from Lex Woody, and I think he's kind of summarized how you need to think about when you're evaluating your choices between Delta,
Mhm.
Iceberg, as well as Hoodie. I think he also covers some of the challenges very clearly, but I think from a general industry observation perspective, if you look at it, see, we had the warehouses which were taken over by data lakes
Mhm.
from 2014 until 19. 18 onwards, the cloud warehouse momentum started gaining speed. So when I say cloud warehouses, Snowflake really started changing the spectrum here, while there was Redshift and BigQuery, right? So
Mhm.
with cloud warehouses becoming very popular, you saw a convergence of use cases that were happening in parallel in most of the enterprises. Uh, there was a SQL style workload happening on your warehouses, and the traditional lake based where SQL happening through Hive, Metastore, and Hive on top of your data lakes, and that both the platforms had to converge some more, and that's where it came to this whole new world of data lake houses, right? So you're combining the asset properties of a warehouse and combining that with the flexibility and the scalability that comes with your data lakes. Now obviously Hive and Hive Metastore had its own set of limitations, and it was not able to cater to all the required uh, properties of acidity and properties of scalability, particularly to do with metadata also, when it comes to data lakehouse based implementations, right? So again, as you know, warehouses had its own limitations around the type of use cases and lakehouse were covering. So, but then you needed to bridge the gap, and that is the primary driver behind the lakehouses. And Hive's limitations around metadata governance, Hive's limitations around the whole flexibility was definitely a real reason why lakehouses are becoming very popular. And I think the options for the customer with the lake houses are splendid. I think it also lake houses are also enabling the best practices of both the platforms in one bundle. So I think that's the power that customers are going to realize in a lake house.
Yeah, totally. I think it'll be interesting to see like when like I feel like the data warehouse lakehouse lines are almost blurred, and it's
Yeah,
a matter of time before it just like all the usability aspect of Snowflake coming to this any data lake houses there. I
correct.
think that's a very interesting aspect of
Yeah,
it.
I think Snowflake pushed the iceberg storyline, right? So they're now they know they do support Apache Iceberg. Anyway, Databricks pushed up Delta Lake, and that was like a big turnaround for Databricks as well, which
Mhm.
was traditionally ML kind of a platform, and targeting that user persona is now trickling down to heavy data engineering and regular analytical workload with Delta Lake. So
Mhm.
I think that convergence is important, and I think we saw that coming, and it is happening right now. So I think the bigger challenge, I think, and that's what the author conveys also, is the choice that we have in front of us, right? So you've got
Yeah,
Woody, you've got
totally.
Iceberg, you've got Delta. Now, how do
Yeah,
we go about it, right? And what's your
yeah.
take on it, Anand?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with the author take right now in this case. Like that's what reflect my experience also. Like, I mean, what the author essentially says that, you know, okay, we have these choices, and then the author essentially say that, though these features are really, capabilities, technical capabilities of Iceberg, Delta Table, and Kudi are fairly equal. And there's slight variation. I'm sure these tools will catch up one way or other. I think he also highlighted a lot of it's also dependence on the users and the vendor community that's also going to play a major role here. And the author give away a recommendation essentially says that, hey, if you are looking for a full featured, more real time Lakehouse model, full featured, more real time, go with Apache Hudi. I think there's a lot of truth in it. Like, I mean, if you go back to the origin story of some of the systems, Apache Hudi came out to be kind of solving those real-time CDC use cases, trying to get out of it from Uber, right? So the system is kind of well designed to handle that such kind of a load. And if you are a very Spark-oriented person, I think, and if you are already in Databricks ecosystem, the choice is very, very obvious. No one kind of going to disagree with that. I think the tightly kind of vertically integrated vendors going to be supporting their own ecosystem pretty well than the rest of the ecosystems. And the last one, the author recommend is if you're looking for something with a strong credential and being multi-vendor support, go with Iceberg. I think
Yeah.
that's a very fair recommendation, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I think so as well. I think, in my point of view, I think you also kind of stressed on that. I think if you compare all three on full features, everything kind of has a lot more similar features, and I'll say everybody has their fair equal strengths, and the choice and what has been covered as part of features by Alex Woody in his blog is amazing, and I would strongly recommend you go through the blog. And we will not steal the thunder out of Alex Woody as well. But then what's important for you to also think about is the vendor or the cloud distribution that you are operating on. And most cloud providers today have started to embrace at least one or two of them. Uh, right. So most of them support read, but then even on the right side, they're starting to support multi-vendor. So that's amazing. Which talks about the openness of the platforms that is going to happen in the future. We You would be able to probably build it in one and then be able to leverage cross platform and all of that. So interesting times ahead.
Yeah, totally. Especially like, cloud vendors, like for example, AWS support Apache Hudi and Iceberg and all those systems, right? All other blocks supporting the EMR has to fine tune for Apache Hudi and all sort of things. So definitely, I think the key takeaway is here, like what is in it for you? Like what is your ecosystems look like? Um, Regardless of what tool that you're choosing, if you're just using a plain old data lake with your maybe Parquet format or any other format, I highly recommend to switch over to any one of those formats. It gives you much efficient access and saves a lot tons of cost for you.
Correct. Yeah. Perfect.
Awesome.
Perfect. Moving on.
Okay. The last topic for today is one of the things that's very interesting. I think everyone talking about it is building a
Yeah.
semantic layer. Building a semantic layer, and then the author talked about how they went ahead and built semantic layer in Preset. Preset is the commercial version of a Superset as a BI tool with DBT. It's kind of a very interesting era, and this blog post is kind of rightly came and kind of, there's a whole conversations around, okay, we have this looker has a lookml, the BI and semantic layers kind of embedded within the BI, and there's a whole lot of other communities kind of arguing it should be outside of it so that it can business logic might be much more easy to scale, shareable. So DBT recently acquired Transform. They are kind of working on building those whole semantic layer on top of it. And so this is a very interesting era of the whole semantic layer. Um, so yeah, so
No, I think
like.
I like this blog as well, particularly for the fact that Pierre basically discusses how he built the semantic layer in Superset and kind of integrated that with the open source version of DBT. Uh,
Mhm.
but I would also like to reference David's blog here as well. I think I'm super excited about what David wrote in one of his blogs, right? So he calls it as the metric calypse. And the era of metric calypse, stressing
Yeah,
on the fact that metric layer is getting all the momentum. It's getting popular. That's one part. As Anand highlighted, DBT picked up Transform to accelerate their build over the metrics layer. Now, I think if you take two steps backward and understand what a metric layer is, if you have multiple BI systems, if you have multiple analytical consumption points, the metric layer kind of standardizes the metric instead of people having to recompute it and redo it all over again. The metric layer essentially allows you to build once and kind of reuse across. Right, so kind of what we did in the OLAP world, but a lot more sophisticated than that. In the semantic layer, is a superset of the metric layer, helping you to consolidate all the business metadata and add semantics to it, so that business users find it easy to consume the metrics as well as the data that forms the different metrics as well. So I think fantastic space, fantastic opportunity if you're rebuilding, if you're building your BI layer, and if you happen to have multiple BI systems, and or if you're recomputing different metrics. Definitely a great starting point if you're in the DBT world. This blog basically talks about how Pierre basically goes ahead
yeah, yeah,
implementing this. Right. So
yeah,
Anand, what's your take
yeah.
on how he has gone?
Yeah, totally. I think the blog came from Plum Living, and the authors kind of highlighting how they kind of integrated DBT and preset. It's kind of very interesting to me. They've got a very simple two-step approach, right? One is like, okay, whenever a developer pushes a new metric definition to DBT, they take the metric definition from a DBT and pushes the updated the metric definition of preset. So you have two places where the metric definition sync. There's write a simple sync transpiler converting from one part to another part. And also like whenever a developer update a new table schema and DBT compile that whatever the code that and you will get the compile code there. And they automatically update the preset dataset definitions. So what they really built a very interesting bridge between the DBT and preset, automatically syncing the metadata from both the data from DBT to preset. I think what it allowed them to define metric schema by code. I think that's a very, very interesting point they made. You can define the metrics, you can define the schema by code, and you can always sync with preset, or you can sync with any BI tool with this approach. And it allowed them to kind of expose selected set of data sets to the users, and then they keep the freshness and all any other utility tables that we are exposing that. It's kind of eliminating a lot. So what they do here is like, okay, this particular data set is interesting for me to expose to the BI tool. I don't want to expose my entire data warehouse table. So people go ahead and define your metrics. People define your table schema. I will selectively update the data set back to preset so that I can curate and then update selected information to the BI. So I don't really confuse users, and I really deliver a certified tables there. I think that's a very, very excellent approach. What do you think, Ashwin?
Yeah, no, I think I would say great approach, and also this blog basically goes in a little bit more detail. I think we should give you the link in case you don't have it handy, where Pierre walks all of these things with examples on how he has achieved that, including the YAML configurations that he has done to do that as well, right? So I think almost everything is well documented for you to follow and take this into the next steps as well, right? So great blog, and I think where he talks about how both of these platforms get integrated, but also keep your eyes open around what's happening around and ears as well, open about what's happening in the world of the metric layer and the semantic layer. A lot of great innovations, and I think Anand would cover more on and keep us posted in his weekly.
Yeah, totally. We'll talk more on that. And so that's it for us today for this Data Engineering Weekly Radio for edition 119. We'll be soon catching up with you 120. We have a lot of catch-ups to do that, and we'll soon be back.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.